Hey, everybody. It's Bill from Matt-Trakker.com, and welcome to this episode of Behind the Mask. Now, the person I'm talking with today has the distinct honor of being, I think, the only person I've talked to on this show that I've met in person before I've talked to them on the show.
Oh,
Dan
nice.
Larson, Galaxy. Yeah. So, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. And you know what? It really stinks. I believe I met you at RetroCon, right?
Yeah.
RetroCon in New Jersey, Philly. Where's RetroCon?
It was Oaks, PA, yeah.
Oaks, Pennsylvania. Okay, I get it mixed up with a couple of the shows down there. But it sucks. I really wish we could have been at that show this year in 2020, and then in 2021. I just don't see it happening, unfortunately.
Well, they just put it out there that they're going to try. So we'll see what happens. But I'm hopeful because the m.a.s.k community has grown a little bit more since I last saw you. And I mean, a lot of things have grown. Beards, hair, although I just got mine cut the other day, but being stuck inside for the last year for some reason, it helped me get, a little bit more in touch with this channel than I do. And it helped me really kind of look at some of the other channels that I would watch, your channel, Retro Blasting, and a few others out there. I would watch them and go, you know what? These guys are great. They know what they're talking about. I know m.a.s.k. Let me try it, and it just kind of stuck, and it's been working well ever since. I think anyway. We don't have 10,000, 200,000 subscribers, but the point of it all is to keep m.a.s.k alive the best we can, because none of the other toy companies or any entities are going to be doing that.
It's weird. m.a.s.k is really, it's just sitting there right below the surface. With everything else Hasbro's doing, G.I. Joe, Transformers, they keep teasing it as being part of this shared universe. It's going to be in the movies. It's going to be in the comics. It's going to be in the stuff. It's just sitting right there, just waiting for them to actually pick it up and run with it.
Well, before we, I have a prop ready here. I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Sure.
And what you're going to see is the only things here that we've gotten new, and these aren't even m.a.s.k related, by the way. They're just looking like m.a.s.k.
Yeah.
Micromasters. This is the only things we've gotten in the past. And you talked about it, how I got my hopes up.
Yeah.
At one point. But before we really, take a deep dive into m.a.s.k, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you came about starting your channel, and at one point did you realize that it was something that you could really stick with, because obviously you love doing it.
Yeah.
And make something out of it, really.
Greg and I, so Toy Galaxy, for those who don't know, Toy Galaxy is a two-person thing. It's myself and producer Greg. I'm always in front of the camera. He's always behind the camera. We see him every once in a while. It's not like he's trying to hide from the camera or anything. It's just, he's not the type of person who wants to be, seen. He likes to be behind the camera, do the editing, that sort of thing. And so we had worked on a lot of just small, self-produced indie kind of, film festival kinds of projects back in 2013, 2014-ish. Really, really low budget. We were using a camera that we called it the car wash camera, because his parents had found it. They'd gone to the car wash one day and there was a camera or something sitting there, and so they were like, "Hey, Greg, you like shooting stuff? You want this?" And he was like, "Okay." And so we just used that camera, and it was, it's really, really, really low res, low budget stuff, but we were having fun. And we had done a couple of things, sort of film festival type things, and we had built up to a point where we wanted to take on some, none of this 2-3 minute things. We really wanted to start to do a longer production, longer format type of thing. He wanted to have something where he could color correct, color grade, do all that stuff, and really get experimental with the way he was cutting it and the kinds of music he was using. And I wanted to sort of challenge myself more. I didn't have any acting experience. I didn't go to school for that. It was just, sort of that personality where I was like, I want to try this. This is something I want to get into. And we spent a lot of time sort of putting together this film that we were going to make. Wrote this, months writing a script and securing locations and, getting actors and setting up the schedule and stuff. And then, the day came to shoot, and we just, the people that were involved with it didn't have the same kinds of commitment to wanting to do it that we did. It's asking a lot of people when you're asking people to volunteer their time and a lot of time, and it's real hard to not be able to say, this is how much time we're going to need. You know, it's like you shoot until you're done. And if you don't get the takes, then you keep shooting until you get the takes because you've only got that location for a day, you know? So we had to step back and say, okay, we couldn't get this project done. We still want to work on stuff. He wants to be behind the camera. I want to be in front of the camera. What else can we do that doesn't rely on anybody else? It's just on us. Let's build a project out of that. Those are the things we have. Those are the tools we have. What can we do? I've always been a huge collector, big into toys, big into action figures, big into pop culture stuff. Greg has always wanted to make videos. So we said, and he's a big YouTube guy. You know, YouTube was at the time then and still is, you know, pretty much his number one source of entertainment. He's, you know, gamed those algorithms so that, you know, he never gets recommended stuff that he doesn't want to watch. You know, I applaud his diligence in that respect. So we just said, you know what, let's just, the two of us, we're going to start a channel. I hadn't even really been watching a lot of toy channels. You know, before, when we were doing our research, we kind of looked around to see what people were doing, you know, a lot of, you know, hands in the booth and just a lot of videos that sort of looked the same. We said, let's do something different. You know, let's find a way to make ourselves stand out from the rest of the field. And the biggest thing we did was just put me in front of the camera and you know, scripted show, me in front of the camera. And we've always approached it with the philosophy of, I'm just trying to make him laugh. He's just trying to make me laugh. And when the videos are done, hopefully other people laugh at them too. Hopefully other people, you know, there's stuff that you learned and took away from it. And that's where it really came from. And Greg is much, much more, he's got a better work ethic than I do. He's very much more about like, I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you don't feel like writing this week or shooting this week. You're writing this week and we're shooting this week. There was a lot of times where I would have said, let's just not do it this week. And he didn't give me that option. But then there were also weeks where he didn't feel like doing it. And I didn't give him that option. It was like, look, this is the only day I can shoot. We got to get it done if we're going to put a video out. So, you know, for a good 3 years, we hit 3 videos a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and just did not let up. And then we had to start looking at the statistics and the algorithms and stuff and say, what do we need to do how do we grow this from just being, you know, 5,000, 10,000 subscribers? What do we really need to do to push this beyond? And that's where Greg's sort of YouTube experience and his immersion in that back end stuff really came into play. And it was hard, you know, if you followed the channel for, you know, more than a couple of months, you know, we used to do our Sunday videos were always like photo booth videos. It was me with stuff I bought at the flea market or things from my collection or whatever. And what we found was that YouTube just didn't like that. YouTube wanted you to hit your video same time, same day every week with the same kind of content. You know, Greg jokes about the fact that what YouTube wants is you to do one thing and just keep doing it. Just do it over and over and over again.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. And so, you know, people, you know, it's like, oh, are you going to do verses? We used to do verses. Like we'd take 2 figures, like the new release and the older release, the Hasbro version, the Toy Biz version of a Marvel Legends, and put them up against each other. And it was a fun format and we want to go back to it, but that's not what the algorithm wants. That's not what the bots at YouTube want. So we really pulled back and we saw that the, you know, sort of history of videos, that's what was working for us. And so we just said, you know what, trim out all the rest of the fat here and let's just focus on that. And then we started a second channel a couple months ago to just put everything else on. And that second channel, Toy Galaxy 2, currently is what's going to just be the home for everything else. And just we'll let that grow as it grows.
I will say that my favorite performance by Greg was when he was trying to toss you Thor's hammer.
Oh, yeah.
But that was probably my favorite. Like, I'm just sitting there watching it going, he's trying so hard. Like, and he just couldn't get it to float at him.
Well, it's such an awkward object. Like there's no balance to that thing. It's a foam hammer, you know. It's just like it's those are our favorite episodes. Like if you went to YouTube right now and sorted our videos for, you know, highest views or whatever, you're going to get a bunch of the history of stuff. The lists are the ones where I wear costumes and we come up with gags and it's us, you know, like just having fun. The best examples of us just having fun during a shoot. But those don't necessarily get the biggest views. It really comes down to what the subject matter is and just how the algorithm catches it. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking forward to being able to push out more on the other channel.
like that episode in whole, like you went through the iterations of Thor through the movies. Like I thought that was really funny watching, the costume and talking about the thing at the end. Like I was like, this is something I like to watch. Like obviously, like you said, your history ones are going to be the ones that are top of the list, but there's ones in there, the ones where you're having fun. Those are the ones I like the most. I like seeing that. But again, I'm a very small minority in everything, but it's always fun to see what you're doing it, having fun, because as you mentioned earlier, shooting, editing, going back and reshooting, uploading, etc. It all takes a lot of time to do, especially with in your case too, with all the research that you're doing. You're not just like one, it's not just one toy line or something like that. Your history videos cover everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And I like learning about those types of things. I think it was I was watching the Marvel Legends one, and I forgot that Mego had both entities at one time, and it was like this little things like that, and it's fun. And even ones you don't even really know that much about, like pole position. I think that was last week. I didn't know that much about it, other than it had a great theme song. But I'm watching it, I'm going, and you're saying it like this has nothing to do with pole position. It's like
it literally has more to do with M.a.s.k than it does pole position.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the one truck looked like Outlaw. So, but there's a lot of them that you've done over time, and naturally, as you said, the ones where you guys goof around are the ones you like the most. So, which one would you say was your favorite one to shoot, and in which one would you say you learned the most about?
Favorite one to shoot is tough. My favorite videos, I at some point will probably do like a Dan's top 10 Toy Galaxy videos, just that's indulgence, maybe around an anniversary or something. And it's not going to be like the really big ones. What still one of my favorite videos of all time is 10 best crustaceans. It's a pretty early video that we shot, and God, like the way time goes by, I just have no concept of how big the channel was, how many people were watching, when we did stuff. Everything seems like it was last week, but it also seems like it was 10 years ago. Everything seems like we did it when we had 500 followers or when we had 200,000. It's just the time just doesn't even mean anything anymore. But 10 best crustaceans was one that we had on our list and we had talked about doing for a really long time. And I just wanted to do it. Greg was just like, I don't get it. I don't get why you want to do that. And I'm like, I just think it's funny. And I think there's some funny stuff that I can write in there, and he was like, okay, whatever you want to do, man. And so one week, it was, during the summer, we were like, let's do it. We're doing it this week. Let's do something summery, something fun. And I was like, crustaceans, beach, ocean, water. We're going to do it. And it's tough. Like, I don't care what your job is, YouTube, whatever, stockbroker, politics, whatever. Like, there are days where you're just in the groove, right? Like you're in the zone and everything just works. And that particular script, the day I wrote it, I was in exactly the right mindset that I needed to be in. There's sort of a voice, there's sort of a character that can come through in the writing and in the performance that if I'm in that mindset properly and focused, I can bang out a script in no time because the jokes just flow. Everything just flows. The product knowledge is there. My personal experience is there. The pop culture references are there. And it just works. And that usually up to that point, that our videos would just be me and Greg. I'd be sitting on the stool. He's behind the camera and nobody else is in the room. Nobody else is around. But that particular day, my wife, Kate, this is Toy Galaxy, she was in the room as well. So we had an audience and I had just written some absolutely ridiculous stuff. And we didn't do like a read through or anything. Usually we do like a quick read through before the show, and we didn't do a read through that day. And so I knew what was coming. I knew what silly jokes I had written, and I'm just waiting to get the reaction, from the crowd. I had a crowd of 2 people, and so I'm really trying to hit these jokes. And so you can see me in that video, and Greg puts up, some of the prompts on the screen. That it was really hot, and whenever it's hot, like we have to turn off everything we're in the room where we're shooting. Like we can't have fans on, we can't have air conditioners on, because the mic is going to pick up all that stuff, and you're going to have this undertone of that buzzing fan or whatever. And so we got to turn all that off. So the windows are closed because we're on a busy street here, and it's just hot as heck. It's just so hot. I'm like sweating. And those are the days where we just make the most mistakes, but those are the days that it's the most fun. And then of course with my wife sitting in as well, like you can see me, and like I said, Greg puts the camera notes up, the screen notes up. You can see me looking over at whatever, like she's laughing because I know she's laughing, and it just made for such a great shoot. And actually, the video you just mentioned, the Marvel Legends one that has me dressed up as Thor and whatever, going through the different iterations of Thor, she was in on that shoot as well. She was there, so there's definitely this sort of heightened sense of like, I want the audience to laugh. I really want to hit these jokes. I want to hit the beats. I want to hit the lines, and I want to do things that make them laugh because then I know it's working. It's real hard. At the very least, having Greg there and, knowing that we have the same sense of humor, if I can get a laugh out of him, even if it's not like an audible, like guffaw, I know it's funny. I know it's working. I know it's hitting. If it was just me by myself sitting alone, like trying to do it, it wouldn't be as it wouldn't hit the same way. It would be a lot harder to get that kind of feedback and to know if it was really working. And whenever people ask me for advice, like, oh, suggestions for my channel, how you work, how you do it, or whatever, I'm like, if there's any way you can work with somebody else, even one other person who gets the subject matter, just have a team. Trying to lose weight, trying to quit smoking, whatever, like, that buddy system it brings so much to the table. So 10 Dust Crustaceans is one of my favorites of all time. That Marvel Legends is one of my favorites of all time. The Masters of the Universe top 10 is one of my favorites. The one where I'm dressed up as He-Man and closes with me singing the Four Non Blondes song. That's one of my favorites. And that one makes me laugh particularly because the first time I ever went to New York Comic-Con, eBay had a booth, and this was not 2020. So this would have been 2019 New York Comic-Con. eBay had a booth, and we had like a sponsorship deal with eBay at the time. And they were running that video like on loop in their booth. And I was like, hey, look at me, Ma, I made it. Like, dressed up as He-Man singing Four Non Blondes at the eBay booth at New York Comic-Con. Doesn't get any better than this. And then the one of my other favorite videos is not a history of, it's the 4 minutes or less Marvel Legends Darkhawk video, which the story that ends up coming out in that one is that when I was 13 years old, before Marvel invented their Darkhawk, I had created a character called Darkhawk, and so the sort of gag running through that whole thing, it's not a gag, it's real, but we play it for laughs, is that Marvel stole my Darkhawk. Like I had, this is Dan Larson's Darkhawk and this is Marvel's Darkhawk, and I sort of make my case for whatever, but it makes me laugh. It's very self-indulgent, but
I can't believe that's not an actual character from before then. Like, it has such a
Darkhawk,
it has such like a good ring to it.
Yeah,
and you would think that something, even like one of those like really obscure, like make your own comic type.
Yeah.
Would have done something like that, but
it was the 90s, where just take any of those two words, Bloodhawk, Darkhawk, Dark Blood, Blood Dark, whatever, like every new character that came out had some name like that.
Yes, you're not wrong on that.
But those three videos are probably my three favorites, but there's just so many videos, like and not to fluff myself here, but any video there, there's
any video I'm in is great.
Anyway, it's the truth. But there's jokes that I've just long since forgotten because our production schedule is there's such a quick turnaround on it that we don't really have time to like sit and languish in whatever we just posted. It's like, as soon as it's done, we got to get the next one done, and YouTube is an unrelenting, unforgiving. Like, if you take a day off, if you take a week off, there's that chance that you might fall out of whatever magical algorithm exists, and you might not be able to get that momentum back. Yeah,
you could actually give to people that are trying to do any of this type of thing is, if you're trying to, if your goal is to become a professional YouTuber or along those lines, you have to meet those standards, as you said. And for me, I'm like, I do it when I can. It's more of a hobby, so to speak, and try to just kind of keep it going. Yeah. But for your channel, for all the other channels out there that, get the advertising dollars coming in and sponsorships, etc. As you said, you could just fall right out and then you don't know what you're going to have to do to get back into it because YouTube
the reality,
changes their
yeah, the reality is that most people can't treat it like it's a business, like it's a full-time thing, because you already have a business, you already have a full-time thing, you know, or you have your job, you have your family, you have your other commitments, you have baseball practice, you have whatever. Greg and I are in a position where we were able to make this show for the first, 3-4 years, the number one, focus, and that was our thing. And, I missed family events. He missed family events. It was like, I'm sorry, we have to shoot. I have to write today. We have to shoot today. That's just, I can't, that's what it is. And on the other side, they could see the numbers and they could see that it was growing and becoming a thing. And that, they knew that we were building towards something and that we were trying to actually make this into, a full-time gig for both of us to be able to support ourselves and, maintain our budgets and all that stuff. And it's, some people just, it works overnight, whatever their combination of personality and their subject matter. We've talked many times about, did we pigeonhole ourselves? Like, could we have applied our approach, the scripted show, research, history, sense of humor, entertainment value? Could we have applied that to a different genre instead of toys? Like, regardless of how I feel about TV or, food, could we have applied that to something that had a bigger audience and we could have grown faster? And the only thing I can say to that is, yeah, we could have applied it to that, but we wouldn't have stuck with it because I wasn't interested in it.
So Toy Galaxy 3, that channel will be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've joked over the years, like, oh, up next, Gardening Galaxy and Astronomy Galaxy, and Cooking Galaxy and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's interesting because, as you say pigeonholed, and I'm in that exact spot. But again, it doesn't matter to me on that front. Every so often, I'll talk about something else that I collect or anything along those lines. And what I found is that when I'm doing a video with somebody else, like yourself, or we have other contributors to the channel, when I'm doing videos with them, I find it more fun. I find it to be easier to go back and forth. When you're doing the videos by, like, if this is me doing an agent profile or reviewing one of the toys, etc., it's good, but I don't know, like, I have a very dry sense of humor. And the jokes I'm making, I'm thinking they're okay, but it's hard to tell. And you're talking about the exact same things, and I'm like maybe that worked.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell on your own. And
what we've seen from the rise of the podcast era, right, that we're in right now, ever since the invention of the iPod, is everybody thinks they're funny, right? Because everybody hangs out with their friends and they laugh and their friends laugh and they tell jokes and they get it, and everybody thinks that can be applied to a show. Oh, we're so funny, we laugh so much, of course everybody's going to laugh at our jokes. And so you turn on the mic and you start a podcast and you go, we're so funny, and then people listen to it and go, it's not funny. You're just like, okay,
funny looking. I know that.
Whatever. I'm laughing at you for the wrong reasons, right?
Draw on the channel.
So it's tough. It's tough. And writing humor is a thing. Like there's a way to write jokes. There's a way to write humor that I could write jokes for somebody else. Somebody else could write jokes for me. But then there's also the sort of way to deliver a line, the comfort level, the sort of like, are you trying to be cringe or are you just cringe? There's a way to use it.
It depends how bad it is, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
well, is there, before we jump, I want to get in the mask in a few minutes, but I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I recently did not too long ago, where you talk about your collection. You talk about your collection 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. I don't know if you've gotten any higher than that at the moment, but basically there was a point in time where I was collecting. Like, I have stuff here still, like Superpowers, Marvel Legends, Turtles, etc., but it's not a ton of stuff. There was a point in time where I had, more Marvel Legends, DC Classics. I was just collecting for whatever reason, and I couldn't figure out why. And eventually I drew back and made the focal point, M.a.s.k, and then these couple of shelves here. And I found it interesting because you had that baggie full, and then with you, it kind of sounds like you had the same kind of issue that I had, maybe more or less with version 2. And then, kind of elaborate a little bit more, like what led you to do that? Was it space? Was it just for your own mental well-being? Like looking at everything, like were you Was it overwhelming?
So there's, a couple things going on there. One is, as a kid, we all come from different family backgrounds. Some kids are in a position where they can get whatever they ask for. I want the Sky Striker, you get a Sky Striker. I want the flag, you get a flag. Other kids don't have that privilege to be able to, get whatever they actually want. And my father was in the military. My mom worked at Zayres. I don't know if anybody knows what Zayres is. Zayres, Ames bought Zayres. It's basically like a Target kind of thing, but even more discount.
I remember Ames.
Yeah, it was just a retail store, right? And they worked very hard and they did everything they could and they provided for us the best that they could. And I would say that compared to a lot of other kids, we did have a lot of stuff. Didn't have a flag, didn't have the Defiant. I had Boulder Hill, and that worked because my brother had grown out of toys way faster than I did. So M.a.s.k was mine. He didn't care about M.a.s.k at all. He was already gone at that point. He stuck around for like the first year or two of G.I. Joe, and then he was out. He was into sports and all the other stuff. I was like, oh, M.a.s.k, this is just for me. So I had almost every single M.a.s.k thing, including Boulder Hill. But that first collection, we sort of comes from this idea of those are just the things you had. And as a kid, I loved action figures. I loved toys. I loved the engineering. I loved the imagination. I loved the designs, jetpacks and helmets and cars with flames on the side, all that stuff. So when you get older and you start working, and you have your own resources, you have the ability to both go back and get the stuff that you couldn't have when you were a kid, or just lost or broke or whatever. And then also, technology has improved and now there's better stuff coming out. And so you're saying like, oh, well, I want original Boba Fett, but I also want this cool new Boba Fett that's coming out, and so then they obviously and you probably are about the same age, that all sort of was happening at the same time. And, Kenner and Battelle and Playmates and everybody are identifying that. And McFarlane and NECA start to grow up because kids who were really big into toys and action figures in the 80s and into the 90s are now young adults with money looking to buy more mature toys, better sculpting, more detail, different subject matter beyond just Saturday morning superheroes, and so you also, for Collection 2.0, I'm looking at the things that I'm having trouble acquiring, right? Like we're talking mid to late 90s. And you're like, oh my gosh, carded Star Wars figures are worth so much right now. I don't want to miss out on that in the future. So you start stockpiling. I not only am I going to get the new Greedo, I'm going to get two more, one to keep in the package, one to sell in the future, and one to open right now. And there's a legitimate investment side to that is real, and that still goes on today. For some people, I don't do it anymore. But there's also what's happening on the other side of your life that might be driving that. And for me at the time, I had, graduated from college. I was in a job that I didn't care for. I was in a town that I didn't want to be in. My friends had all moved to other places. And so a lot of my stockpiling and a lot of my desire to get all the things was driven by needing to feel like I was accomplishing something, right? Like every time I got a new figure, it was like, oh, I did something. I accomplished something. It's growing. I'm completing a collection. And then I also, tell the story about, I thought someday I might want to, I was really interested in the history, the sort of evolution of toys. And so if there was a weird one-off sort of thing that only existed in a certain line, I wanted to make sure I had that. I wanted to have all the Captain Americas that had been ever released. I want to have all the Spider-Mans that have every Wolverine, because someday I might actually, and this is long before YouTube existed, I was like, someday I might want to actually have the history of toys, of action figures, of the things I'm interested in represented in my collection, not knowing that, if someday we'd have this show. It just worked out that way. But yeah, so Collection 2 turns into this. You have these resources. You potentially may be dissatisfied with how your life is advancing as a young adult, but you are still genuinely interested in this stuff. And for me, it just got to a point where I had to really pull back and say, okay, what are we doing with this? What are we doing with this? Because you can't take it with you. And if it is an investment, you need to actually be realistic about looking at some of that stuff and saying, is it worth what it takes to keep it and store it and make sure that it's preserved to, at full value? Am I going to buy cases for all these boxes and all these blister cards? Am I making sure that I used to work at a movie theater when the special edition Star Wars movies were released. And one of the things that they did as a promotion at the time, when Return of the Jedi was released, there was a special theater edition Luke Jedi figure that, the figure was the exact same figure as the regular Power of the Force figure. The blister card was different. It had the date on it. It said special theater edition Luke. And I was working as an usher at a movie theater. So I was like, oh, I'm getting one of those. Like as soon as that box came in, I was like, you better give me one of those. So I got one, and it was even cooler because it has the wrong date on it. Like at the time, the movie was supposed to be released this week, and it got pushed 2 weeks or whatever. And I had that figure in my cases, in my boxes for years. I didn't buy a special case for it or anything. And I'm watching the values, and it's not going up, and it's not going up. Maybe it's here and there. And then after a certain amount of time, the bubble just slid right off the blister. It just came off. I didn't do anything. I just opened the bin one day, and I was like, oh, that sucks.
That actually happened to my T-Bob up here.
Yeah. It was never intended to last forever.
It was sitting on a shelf, and I went to pick it up, and I was like,
Yep.
what the hell just happened? Like I didn't even think, like, you don't think that would happen.
30-year-old glue, yeah.
But it did. And it's actually pretty funny that now that
so you need to pull back and say, if I'm actually doing this as a legitimate investment, then I need to actually start budgeting that way, and I need to actually start preserving the stuff that way. And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy. Like I had a giant cardboard box that had every loose blister card from every figure I had bought for like 20 years. Because I was like, I need to preserve this stuff. I need to, if I sell it even loose, I need to make sure. And then I was just like, I don't want to be that guy. That's not the kind of collector I want to be. So I need to draw my lines and move on with what I'm comfortable with. And so I just got rid of all that stuff, sold all that boxed stuff, all that carded stuff, kept the pieces that I wanted, and appreciated that I had more space, and my budget was more under control and a little bit more manageable. And so that's where you move into collection 3.0. 3.0 basically is just you've made peace with who you are and what you're trying to do with your collection, and you don't get too attached to a thing if it's actually detrimental to your health, survival, budget, whatever. Your collection is a fluid thing. Maybe today I love Superman. Next week I decide I don't. Then get rid of those figures. You don't need to keep them.
No, and that's it's an interesting arc, really. It like. I was never one for in the box stuff. Like the boxes behind me here, they're all empty. I'll get them for like, as cheap as I can on eBay or wherever else. And they're all just sitting up there. There's, but the stuff that I remember, the stuff that I really want to preserve and have are the loose vehicles.
Yeah,
the ones that I have when the ones I had when I was a kid, the ones I had when I would play with my brother and my cousins and kids down the street. That's what I want to remember with these things. And like that chili find, I don't know if you were aware of any of that. I did get some of they found a giant warehouse full of sealed m.a.s.k vehicles.
Oh, nice.
In Chile. Manta, Meteor, Vampire, Bullet, and
it's crazy.
One other. I mean, it's just a giant warehouse. Like, there's a video on it if you just want to see some video stills of it or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But I ended up picking up the sealed Meteor and Manta because it was like there's not much else really coming out m.a.s.k wise. This has been sealed in a warehouse in Chile for 35 years. I'll bite on it. That's really the only thing I have that's in the box. Everything.
Well, that's how like vintage Star Wars collecting is, and Transformers. Vintage Star Wars figures have been around for so long at this point, and the real diehard Star Wars collectors have long since completed that collection. So they keep looking for something else to continue that love, to continue that fervor about those things. So it becomes the variants. Oh, well, somebody just identified that there's like light brown hair. Well, now I got to go get all the light brown haired ones. Oh, somebody just identified that there's a difference in the serial numbers on the back. Oh, well, now I get to go buy all the different serial numbers. It's like you want that to keep happening, and that's good for people, and it doesn't work for other people.
And I technically have all the m.a.s.k stuff, but there's the playful figures, the ones that came from Argentina, where I tried to talk to the owner of the company a couple times, but he hasn't really gotten back to me. What I was hoping to do was, can I just have a vague number of how many there are? Because I have some, and I've seen other people that have like 200 of them, and I'm like, where's the end?
Yeah.
I gave up on that because I was like, I can't complete it. It's not. Is that worth my time consuming? Like consuming that time to look for poorly made variants of Ace Riker with Matt-Trakker's head.
Yeah.
Or maybe this one's actually Ace, but yeah, this one's actually Ace, and like, and you get to a point, it's like, if it comes to me, I will look at it. But after that, I stopped trying to invest that time, and
Yeah,
I became more focused on doing the show with talking about the different iterations of M.a.s.k and talking about the lines and how we're constantly screwed over in the M.a.s.k community, and just kind of trying to keep the passion that I have for it moving forward. And and this is a perfect segue to go on the M.a.s.k. I didn't think I could put a YouTube show on and hold it. I wasn't sure how it would go because I knew, as you said earlier, you talked about being pigeonholed for things. I knew that doing a show about a cartoon on a toy line from the mid 80s that had nothing past that was a huge gamble, but it was a gamble that I wanted to take and spend the time on to try to build it back, because I know that there's people out there that do love it and still love it, but we just don't get anything out of it. And I was curious what your thoughts are on that, because it's 1985 where it came out. 88, I think, maybe might have been some of the last pieces trickling out into the stores. It's 2021, and the picture I turned on earlier, two figures and two vehicles that are Transformers that look like two vehicles, and like that's it. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, why didn't it catch on past that? Why don't we have 18,000 lines like Masters? Like,
well,
just,
obviously, profitability, the business end is always going to drive this stuff. And M.a.s.k just inherently is a more complicated toy that requires more engineering than a lot of stuff. An X-Wing takes way fewer pieces, even if it's the really nice version of the X-Wing. Fewer pieces than Thunderhawk or even Condor. Condor is a pretty simple toy. Not that many moving parts, but it's just more complex. And so obviously bottom line is, are they going to sell enough of those units to actually merit it coming back? The other thing is, a lot of what's already out there, and obviously Kenner, M.a.s.k was created by Kenner. Kenner is currently owned by Hasbro. At the time, Kenner, being independent of Hasbro, was in the position to be able to put out a competitor to Transformers and GoBots and all of the other transforming toys that were out at the time, and vehicle lines. They went smaller so that they could have more complex vehicles. Now, Hasbro knows that if they're putting M.a.s.k out that's not somehow connected to G.I. Joe or to Transformers, then they are potentially, cannibalizing their own audience by sending, sort of mixed messages. Now, I know I'm saying that as yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, Hasbro just announced that they acquired Fortnite to go along with Ghostbusters and Power Rangers and G.I. Joe and Transformers. And like, they have all of the brands. So where does M.a.s.k sort of fall into that sort of thing? Obviously, you remember, and the figure you just showed echoes it, the 25th anniversary G.I. Joe line. It looked like, oh, this is it. They're finally going to take a step towards just rolling M.a.s.k in as a sub line of.
They're going to do it, Dan. They're doing it.
Yeah,
it's coming out. I'm still holding out hope.
I know, me too. I remember waking up and seeing that first picture of that Matt-Trakker, because Matt-Trakker is like one of my top four. Like, that's one of my four, my Hall of Famers. It's Captain America, Snake Eyes, Boba Fett, Matt-Trakker. I have my my custom. I don't know if you follow I think you follow my Instagram. I have my custom 6-inch Matt-Trakker.
Oh yeah.
Made from this was made by Grant Saunders. He's Carolina Cool Cat on Instagram. He knew that Matt-Trakker was the one of those four that I was never going to be able to get. Obviously G.I. Joe was back. Boba Fett's been back for years. And Captain America obviously has been out there for years too. So he was kind enough to make that for me. But Yeah, the first time those pictures showed up of the 4-inch 25th anniversary Matt-Trakker, and it was like, well, if they're doing Matt-Trakker, obviously they're going to do at least Miles Mayhem, you know, like you can't have one without the other. I thought that was it. I thought for sure they just throw one in there every once in a while. Let's work our way down, you know, Hondo McLean and, you know, all these guys. But it just stopped. And there was like one vehicle that came out. I don't remember what it was called. It was kind of like a tank that had like a helicopter in it. And the helicopter could lift out of the sort of tank thing, and there were like all
Remember
kinds
you're
of
talking about.
I don't remember what it was called. I want to say it was called something like the Rhino or something like that.
I'll put it in.
It was pretty clear. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. It was pretty clear that vehicle, and I don't have any confirmation on this. I should ask somebody next time I talk to one of these designers or something at Hasbro. Like, it's pretty clear that was probably going to be part of a M.a.s.k thing, but ended up, you know, they didn't go anywhere with it. They decided not to pursue it, so they just said just roll it out as G.I. Joe, because that's what it was going to be anyway. So there's like things out there that Hasbro has done over the years that fit that profile, where you can kind of see like hints of it, but it's so close to other things that they're doing. Like I've seen a lot of people, there were I don't remember which Transformers movie it was, which Bayverse Transformers movie it was, Dark of the Moon, or I don't know, whatever. But there were a line of motorized vehicles that didn't transform into the robots, but they had like motorized features where like guns and stuff would pop out. And I've seen a couple people repaint the Optimus Prime as Rhino. And you're like, that's it. That's a M.a.s.k vehicle. Like if I could buy that already painted as Rhino, I would have, you know. It's Bumblebee, and like you press the button and all these different guns and rockets and stuff come out, and you go, okay, that's M.a.s.k. You know, I can't put a figure in it, but that's basically a M.a.s.k toy. And it's like, yeah, could they have over the years just said, let's spin this off as, you know, M.a.s.k? They could have, but I'm sure there's some accounting reason why they chose not to, because obviously they still own the licenses and they haven't let them lapse like other stuff.
I just assume that they're doing it to piss me off, but
that's possible. There's somebody might have a vendetta against you.
Yeah, I'm taking it personally the whole time, but no, it's just kind of funny when you, in the overall grand scheme of things, when you think about it. The line, what, you know, and in your history of M.a.s.k, the point you bring up about Spectrum, about how it's a plot device moves everything forward. I thought that for years. It's like, you know, maybe call it a different name, but other than Spectrum. But when you have an entity that has, you know, super, you know, secret agents with helmets with M.a.s.k powers, vehicles that transform, what you know, okay, I know Scott and T-Bob were in it, but where does that not translate to something? And it's mind-boggling. And I still just really can't, like you said, I know they're very they're very meticulous the way they transform, and the figures, obviously there's a lot of detail on them for the size they are. But if you want 6-inch, let's say, you know, Thunderhawk would be like this big.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
You know,
very prohibitive.
It would, and even if you want, you know, the scale of, you know, the, was it 375 or 4-inch of the G.I. Joes, you're looking at the size of all those vehicles too. And the M.a.s.k characters, they're kind of one and the same. Like if you're gonna have the character, you want the vehicle too. So that's where the hardware comes in. Like if they just released characters, sure, I'd buy them all. If they released a picture of a character, I'd buy it. Like if it was something official from what they were doing, I'd be like, let me grab that. But for me, it'd always be like, all right, I have, you know, I got this guy here, but he's sad, doesn't have Thunderhawk. You know, he's incomplete, and it just feels that way. And you had IDW take on M.a.s.k, which I was happy about initially, but then the story got really weird. You know, then they gave us, you know, the repainted version of Matt-Trakker, and I was like, maybe that'll have something. Nothing. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, thanks for wasn't the fiction.
Yeah, so it was actually called the Rhino. I just looked it up on yojo.com, and it's the Rapid Heli-Integrated Neutralizing Offensive Vehicle. And if you take a look at the pictures and stuff, there's sort of a helicopter that launches out of the middle of it, and there's all these like secret compartments and stuff, and it kind of has this bit of a the wings fold out, the chopper blades come out, and it turns into these dual vehicles as opposed to just the one sort of tank jeep.
You're 100% right on this.
Yeah. So it very much so that is actually pre 25th anniversary. The 25th anniversary line wasn't quite out yet, but that definitely has the feeling of okay, somebody was thinking M.a.s.k. For this, and they just decided to roll it out as G.I. Joe instead.
And that box art looks M.a.s.k-ish, like
yeah. And so they re-released that exact same vehicle in 2009. Again, still called the Rhino. It comes with a driver called Rampage. Different color scheme, but it's a M.a.s.k. vehicle. And there's another. I've seen a lot of people. There's a Batman. It's like Bruce Wayne's coupe or something like that. That also has some sort of transforming, and I've seen people repaint that as a modern version of Thunderhawk.
Yeah, the one from was it 89? Was it Batman Returns? I think it was.
Yeah, it might have been for the animated series. I'm not sure which one it was for.
Okay.
But so those sorts of things are out there. So, I hear fans who grew up with this stuff. Obviously, I am one of those fans, and I would absolutely jump right in on M.a.s.k. I push back on the sort of sense that anything is owed to anybody, right? Like nobody owes anybody anything. But at the same time, I look at it and I say, well, Hasbro hasn't let those trademarks lapse, so somebody somewhere is saying, let's not let this stuff go. Let's hang on to this. We might be able to use it at some point. And I really genuinely believe that they did try to get this shared universe out there that was Transformers, M.a.s.k, G.I. Joe, Visionaries, whatever else they were trying to roll in there. I just think they went too big and they tried to do too much.
No, I think you're right too. I mean, I honestly think that there was at least an effort to do something. It's just, it's just a shame that you're never really been moved off of anything. But, I mean, the movie still has F. Gary Gray attached.
Yep.
So, and that hasn't changed at all from what I know, but it's just, sitting dormant for the time being.
Yeah.
So you said Matt-Trakker was your favorite. Is Thunderhawk also your favorite vehicle?
Yeah, it really is. That was the one that I fell in love with right from the beginning. And it, I've joked about it on the show before that as a kid, as a 12-year-old kid or whatever, I saw the show first. And this was, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have magazines to tease this stuff. And I wasn't clued in yet to the idea that the only reason these shows existed was to sell toys. So obviously there's going to be toys. I vividly remember somebody at the bus stop saying there are M.a.s.k. toys and just being like, that's impossible. You can't, the technology doesn't exist. You can't, how would they even do it? And so to see that Thunderhawk in the store, it just absolutely blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind that it was real. You start seeing the ads in the comic books and stuff. And then I'm pretty sure, I can't remember exactly. I would have to check with her, but I think Thunderhawk was one of those ones where my mom just brought it home one night, okay. She was working at Zayre's and just bought it. And so it was just like this miracle dream come true on top of like, what did I do to earn this special gift? And those are the
your dirty socks finally.
Yeah, those are the things that just sort of etch those kinds of things in your memory. You didn't think it could actually be real. You didn't really even feel like you earned it, and now it's a thing that you actually own. And that toy lived up to all of your expectations as far as like how cool you thought it would be. I loved the fact that he had the removable helmet. I would have liked if he had elbows because he did have knees. That's okay. I'll let it go for the scale. Yeah, just everything about it I absolutely loved. And even more so because, like I said earlier, my brother wasn't into M.a.s.k. or anything like that. So it was exclusively mine. I got to put it together. I got to put the stickers on it. I got to, I didn't have to share it with him. It was just my thing.
The one that's on your back shelf and your shots, is that your original?
I don't I don't have either my original Thunderhawk or Matt-Trakker anymore because as much as Thunderhawk was one of my favorite, most memorable sorts of good memories. It's also one of the sources of my earliest trauma, because, and I'll never understand this mindset where, parents, buy you stuff and then get rid of it at some point, right? Like they're just like, hey, you're not taking care of your toys that we spent money on, so we're just going to put them in the trash. I'm just like, you're punishing you mostly on this. Like, you're the dummy who spent the money on it. Like, why are you throwing away this thing that you spent money on? You gave me such a hard time for how expensive it is, and then you put it in the trash, you dummy. Yeah, no, it was one of those things where I loved that Matt-Trakker so much. Like, I had literally made a little campsite for him. Like I had my bed, and then next to it, there was like a little bookshelf, and I had made a little campsite for him. Like, he was parked there for the night. I had made like a little Kleenex pillow, little tissue blanket for him. He was like tucked in next to his car. And I just, got up the next morning, went to school like normal. And when I came home, you have that moment of horror where you're like, oh wait, she's not here in the living room. She's not in the kitchen. It sounds like she's up in my room. And if she's up in my room, that means she's cleaning my room. And you go upstairs and it's just like, the vacuums go in, the garbage bag's out, everything's not where you left it. And I was like, okay, listen, I literally don't care about anything else in this room. If you want to put the bed in the trash, I will sleep on the floor. Did you see a little guy in a gray jumpsuit? Because that's the only thing I care about right now. And she was like, I don't know. I think I probably check the trash bag. I think there's something in there. And I went over, and Snow Serpent was in the bag. Snow Serpent from G.I. Joe, who is wearing a gray jumpsuit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, technically this is a guy in a gray jumpsuit. So you are correct, but this is not the little guy in the gray jumpsuit that I wanted. And so he was just gone. He was just gone. Matt-Trakker was gone. Thunderhawk was gone. And it would be years before I would be able to buy one back, because at the time eBay didn't exist. I didn't know about flea markets yet. If you didn't catch one at a yard sale or something. So I now have multiple Matt-Trakkers and multiple Thunderhawks. So
just in case somebody
you never know. Somebody's gonna keep them hidden in different places just in case somebody decides to throw one away. It's like, you found that one, but you didn't find the other four.
that type of thing happened with my brother and I too. Like, we had our toys out in the backyard, like mostly like Masters and Turtles, but they were probably in like a trash can, and we played with them outside. And one day that trash can wasn't in the backyard, so they got tossed by accident. But I remember, I remember when I was going back to my parents' house. It might have been right before I started the website, actually. And I was cleaning up my old room, and I was reaching behind this radiator, and I'm looking down. I'm like, is that Matt-Trakker down there? And it was my original Matt-Trakker. I don't have my original Thunderhawk, but I have the original Matt-Trakker. And surprisingly, he didn't melt behind a radiator.
That's crazy.
For 15 years, whatever it was.
Wow.
So that's the one I have up here. I had to get a new mask for him because God knows where that went.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of funny. I was like, is that Matt back there? Oh, let me get him out of there. But no, and that's kind of where I started and started recollecting. When you were collecting masks, did you only go for the things you had when you were a kid, or did you go for more than what you had before?
Initially, I needed to get back the stuff that I had originally owned. I think my Raven survived. I think my current Raven was my original Raven. That was another one that I just absolutely loved. But I think everything else, Condor, I definitely remember my dad stepping on Condor and breaking. There's like the little kickstand piece that slides down, and that just snapped right off. I never had Switchblade, so Switchblade was definitely one where I was like, okay, I didn't own that, but I got to get that. I need to have that. Rhino, I didn't care about as a kid, but as a young adult looking to get back into the line, I was like, okay, I definitely need to get Rhino. It's just a key. Like it's such an iconic part of the franchise. I definitely need to own that, and just it looks cool on a shelf. All the chrome and just those big rubber tires, and it's just a cool piece. Plus, I mean, I just love opening the little doors and putting the little guys inside. So
little seatbelts,
little Bruce Sato and Matt-Trakker sitting in the cab there, or whoever you decide to put in there. So the only thing I didn't and still haven't gone back and repurchased at some point, and I've since bought and sold many pieces. I still don't have a Boulder Hill just because I don't have the room for, you know, play sets and stuff that big. At some point I'll probably grab one, but it's not a huge high priority. I think honestly right now there's a lot I don't have because I sort of said, okay, am I focusing on mask? Do I need to have all the mask stuff? Am I going to have it on displays? Just going to sit in bins? So I have the few, you know, Thunderhawk, Condor, Raven, Hurricane, Vampire, Slyrax's motorcycle, whose name escapes me right at the moment, Piranha, and then a couple other vehicles that, you know, I was like, okay, these are the ones that I really feel like are the best from the line. They were my favorites as a kid, or the ones that I wanted to get but didn't get, Switchblade. The rest, I'm just like, I don't really need to get them, you know. Some, honestly, there was just some I just didn't like the way they changed. They transformed, you know, like I didn't like what they turned into, you know.
I have a long-standing thing on the show where I just belittle Billboard Blast as much as I can, just because it's literally one of the worst things ever made, and it's just so stupid. But
yeah,
like if I didn't have to have the whole collection, I wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
So
right.
But a lot of times I'll have it in the video and I'll brush it aside or I'll knock it over with something. It's like a gimmick rolling thing or whatever it is. And but I guess if the line came back somehow, what would you want to see it as?
So I personally don't care about vehicles anymore. So I know that's a tough thing to say with respect to a line like m.a.s.k. That said,
it takes up a lot of space.
It takes up a lot of space, and I just don't know that the adult collectors in large groups are there for it. Thunder Tank from Super 7 may prove me wrong. We'll see. That thing's out there now. You know, I was blown away when Hasbro decided to do the First Order TIE Fighter in 6-inch scale. I did not buy one because it was out of my price range, and where am I going to put it? You know, that's just the reality of 6-inch scale figures. 6-inch scale is hot right now, and it will be for a very long time. That said, you know, a company like Jazzwares has had success putting out both 6-inch Fortnite figures and, you know, 4-inch Fortnite figures. Jazzwares is doing 6-inch Halo figures and 4-inch Halo figures because they know that at the 4-inch scale you can roll out, you know, vehicles. Hasbro, especially with like their Avengers stuff and their Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, put out a lot of stuff that was like little figures. Like I think they're even shorter, smaller than m.a.s.k. figures, not very posable, like, you know, shoulders and hips basically, but it allowed them to do, you know, complex play sets and vehicles and the different ships and stuff. Not quite as small as like Action Fleet and whatever, but, you know, in that range of being able to say, okay, yeah, we can do, you know, we want to do a shield helicarrier, but we're not going to do that in 6-inch scale. We're not even going to do that in 4-inch scale, you know? So you got to change, you got to shift around on the scale a bit. So I could see, you know, honestly, I could see Super 7 doing it. I could see Super 7 acquiring that license and saying, look, Hasbro, you don't have you have the ability, but you don't have the desire to sell these low quantities. And let's be realistic about what the fan base is and who's going to buy this stuff. It's just like Thundercats or Silverhawks or whatever else. There's a limited scale to that audience right now without increasing the, you know, the visibility of it and trying to bring in a new audience. So if they're not rolling out a new cartoon for kids, if they're not rolling out a new game, a new Fortnite interactivity, you know, something like that, then you're looking at a company like NECA or Super 7 who can, you know, NECA just came out with Defenders of the Earth. You know, like, talk about a niche audience, right?
Pure as it gets. Like I have one of the figures. I have the Phantom.
Okay, I didn't get any of them yet, and I'm very
one of the original ones, not the.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I was like, really, really, okay,
yeah. Who cares, right? Like of all the licenses that could have come out before then,
I just found it surprising. I was just like,
no, I saw him at Toy Fair last year, and I knew Boss Fight was going to be doing like, you know, some of those characters, Phantom, Flash Gordon, and stuff. Not necessarily Defenders of the Earth, but some of the characters from it. And then seeing the Defenders of the Earth at NECA's booth, it was just like we had just done our Defenders of the Earth video, and I was just like, why? Who's doing this? Why are you doing this? And I have to assume it was just the sort of synergy of, you know, this coincidence that whoever was shopping the King Features Syndicate characters, Phantom, Flash Gordon, all that stuff, there was a licensing expo, and NECA went in on it, and Boss Fight went in on it, and somebody else went in on it, and so just all of a sudden everybody had Phantom and whatever. And so some people took the angle of, we're just going to do Phantom and Zorro and whatever, and the other side was, we're going to do, you know, actual Defenders of the Earth. But I could see, you know, Super 7 approaching Hasbro and saying, look, we're already working with you on Transformers, we're working with you on G.I. Joe, let's work with you on M.a.s.k as well. We're going to do a 6-inch line of Ultimates figures, then we're going to do a smaller line with a couple of vehicles and just see how it goes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're not going to have the same quality with them. It'll be all plastic. Probably.
Oh yeah, no, you'll never go back to what the materials that were used back in the 80s.
So, but I don't think, I mean, you know, that unless that line took off so quickly that there's then, you know, demand for, hey, I want a full recast of some of the other ones, which
yeah.
You know, per my understanding is that a lot of the old molds were destroyed, but you know, there's 3D printers out there that can recreate a lot of the stuff. And
sure. And I think that I'm a little surprised actually that market hasn't filled the sort of void, right? Like there's a lot of third parties and, you know, 3D printer people out there doing a lot of that work. But it just at a certain point you got to step back and say, let's be realistic about what the fan base is. You know, I didn't think Super 7 was going to fund that Thunder Tank. I really honestly didn't. I thought it was a good move for them to pick up the Thundercats license, but I did not think that there was going to be enough of a fan base there to get that Thunder Tank funded. And
like, no, I wouldn't think that either. Like I remember seeing some early concepts of it and following along a little bit because I do watch that and like is that Hasbro Pulse? Is that what it's called? Yeah, Hasbro Pulse. Like I go on those just to see like what, you know, what's happening, and I was like, wow, got funded. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm shocked that Unicron got funded. I'm shocked that the Super 7 got that Thunder Tank out, and that's where I just sort of sit back and go, hey, okay, it's not for me, and maybe I'm not, you know, fully 100% in tune with what the collecting community really wants, because I want know what I really want.
My entire house.
I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I need a Rhino that has, you know, doubles as a bed because it's that big. You know? Like,
well, I can imagine. So I never had the flag when I was a kid, but if they ever recreated that, geez, what would that cost?
The thing about the flag is, have you ever seen one in person?
Yeah. It's
just a plastic table. It's just a plastic table. That's all it is.
You lift it up off the ground. It's a dining room table.
There's nothing there. It's 4 big, heavy plastic panels that are being held about 8 inches off the ground by some very lightweight plastic buttresses. That's it. It's really not that complex a thing. So could they do it? Yeah, sure they could. How big do you want this thing to be? How big do you want this thing to be?
It needs to be big enough to hold 18 people at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But no, like I know, like it's not overly detailed in the way that it's built, but still, if you're a fan of G.I. Joe and you had that growing up, and seeing the size of it, the scale, it's pretty immense. And I would only like I can only think of like, all the different Star Wars things that are out at shows and conventions that are prop pieces, like, a giant Millennium Falcon hanging there, like that's 6 times the size of the original. All this stuff, all these promotional things, and I'm like, why can't I just have one
car? Yeah,
anything.
Hey,
and
I'm telling you, hunt down that Rhino. That might scratch that itch for you a little bit.
I will. And
it used to be pretty high priced. I haven't checked the prices on it recently, like on eBay or anything. It used to go for a pretty penny.
I'll check. But circling back to the customizers, without them, they're literally nothing. There's people out there doing Shark. There's a lot of they're mostly all over in Europe. Shark, in addition to Boulder Hill, where it's like underground. Mm-hmm. The Chinese Scorpion, the drill. I forget the name of the drill off the top of my head. But like all this elaborate stuff that actually mechanically works. You can go and get that stuff. Blackout, was a really obscure one episode thing, and things that people made themselves.
Yeah.
A little soda machine turns into a little cannon, and in reproductions of the two sets that weren't produced, but prototypes are out there of Thunderball and Ramp Up.
Yeah.
So there's at least that, we have that to go on, but without those type of creative people, without, people writing their own fan fictions, without writing their own,
Comics,
story,
whatever. Yeah.
Comics, or one-off little panels that Kerouac does. Like,
Yeah.
He helped breathe life into something that needed it. IDW came along and it started breathing life in, but then it just punched us all in the stomach. And then he came I didn't even know him at the time, and he's just like, I'm going to do this comic. I might ask you for some ideas or some ideas by it. Now he's like one of my best friends.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's all through online, through m.a.s.k, and it's the power of the community where we're the ones creating the content and realizing that, shows like yours, and there's a lot of other ones out there that cover m.a.s.k from time to time, all have a certain, they have affinity for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that something should be coming along the way, but it's just not there yet. I just got this in the other day. See if we can see it. Cartoon accurate.
Oh yeah,
Gloria.
yeah, nice.
So I always talk about how Gloria, like, pretty much, I don't know what, why DIC and Kenner were like no girls allowed.
Yeah, very short change, very disappointing. Yeah,
and but even the one they got with her, like, its colors are terrible.
Right.
So, they got these customizers doing those too. So it's just nice to have that ability to still collect something, even though it's not officially licensed.
Yep.
From Hasbro, which hopefully maybe, or like you said, maybe a Super 7 down the road. But
hey, look, Super 7 is really pushing into this retro 80s market. Last year they showed off, I don't know if they've actually hit yet, they showed off Gem and the holograms, reaction figures. They've obviously they've done Transformers reaction figures. I could see them saying like, okay, what's next? Silverhawks, they just announced. We haven't seen any figures or anything for them yet, but they've very heavily hinted that figures are coming, probably to match the Thundercats. I could see them on the other end of that in a year or two saying, let's go for m.a.s.k. We did Thundercats, we did Silverhawks, we did Transformers, we've done some I think they've got some GI Joe products out there. Let's take a we've got a great relationship with Hasbro, let's do m.a.s.k. I could see them doing that for sure.
Yeah, I would love that. Even though it's only a figure line, I would buy it. Yeah. I would be more than happy. What I would love to see is, the two things. Just because, like, outside of m.a.s.k, I don't really collect vehicles of anything else. I have the Turtle van and some Batmobiles.
Okay.
and Ecto-1, and like that's it. Everything else is a figure.
Yeah.
So it's like m.a.s.k is my favorite, but outside of that, I don't really want the other vehicles from anything else. Yeah. I don't want the what the hell is it? The Walker from Superpowers. I don't want that thing.
Yeah.
It's like I have all the figures there with a custom Riddler up there because I can't afford the real one.
Right.
I found a Cyborg surprisingly cheap. I don't know how or why whoever was smiling down on me that day, it worked out pretty well. But I was like, I don't want the vehicles. I have the Batmobile. Yeah. The Hall of Justice, which is a piece of crap. It just falls apart everywhere. Yep. And if you had just the vehicles or just the figures coming out, in that line, about 3 inches tall, I think they are, give or take.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
You would get maybe not the amount of detail you get on these figures, which is surprisingly a lot of them, but you would still have the entity that you'd be looking at as, that's Spectrum, that's Matt-Trakker, that's Viper, that's Miles Mayhem. But the biggest problem that whoever does this is going to be facing, and maybe they're just afraid to take the chance, is that all of us Like there's that community there, but all of us are not getting any younger.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been nothing along the way except for the very few things. How are they able to gauge the sales of that where it was a limited run of,
Right.
like, how do you gauge that against anything? So maybe they're afraid. I just don't know.
Yeah, they've got a lot of really smart people in their marketing and sort of planning departments, looking at budgets and stuff. And
afraid isn't the right term. You know what I mean? Like, they're reluctant. Like,
sure. I think Mattel has really struggled with how to position Masters of the Universe. And for whatever reason, Hasbro has really struggled with how to position G.I. Joe. And if those two brands can't get out there and catch on with not just the adult collector who remembers them as kids, but the new generation, then there's just not going to be any incentive there for them to try to move. I think beyond, even Star Wars today doesn't move the volume of stuff that it moved back then.
Oh, no.
I have my Boba set of 500 plus vintage Boba Fett figures, and
Yes.
people will make comments like, "Oh, are you trying to collect them all? Like, oh, do you have them all yet?" And it's like,
I got one. Do you need it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll take that. They produced literally millions of that figure. I couldn't acquire all of them if that was even my life's mission and I won the, $1 billion Powerball lottery. Like, it is impossible. There were so many. What is considered
what you could do is, if you won that lottery, like whatever house you build yourself and the golden throne you're on,
yeah,
hand out something, have people come to you with the Boba Fett's, and then you give them a goodie bag.
Sure.
Like, you don't have to do any of the work. You just got to sit there.
Well, yeah, and that's sort of what we were doing in the photo booth there, was people just started sending them in, and I really appreciated that. But that was an exchange for, entertainment and all the other stuff. Like,
yes.
But even today, Star Wars and Transformers, the biggest properties that are out there they're not moving even remotely the quantities of product that they moved back in the day. So for something to be considered financially viable today, while it doesn't have to do the volume it did in the past, it still has to do an incredible amount of volume for them to see interest in it. Those companies, Hasbro specifically, because they own the license. And
is it because that we don't have the 25-minute commercials? The
running? Entire entertainment landscape has changed.
Yeah.
Kids don't consume entertainment the way they used to. Everybody isn't on the same page. The reason Fortnite is so big, regardless of anybody's thoughts about the game or whether you enjoy playing it or not, or if the kids doing the dances annoys the crap out of you.
I tried it once. I gave up.
It wasn't for me, but that is a point in the entertainment universe where all of the kids are. All of this generation is converged around that thing. So that is a saleable thing. Any other cartoons, any other media, any other entertainment, whether it's, Star Wars or Transformers or anything else, like, you have to be able to be that focal point to be able to catch on. M.a.s.k just isn't it and can't be it right now, unless Hasbro wants to try to turn it into something like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever. It's just not big enough. So it falls to those smaller companies who are willing to invest the resources and are in tune with the collector market enough to know that the collector is willing to spend $45 on a 6-inch scale figure of Matt-Trakker, or, $15-20 on a 4-inch scale figure of, whatever. And vehicles are just tough. Yeah. Vehicles are just tough. Just so much, people just immediately, as soon as Super 7 announced that Thunder tank, people were like, blah. And it's like, what do you expect? Like, Hasbro isn't even doing vehicles like that anymore. They went to HasLab for the Razor Crest,
Yeah, I was following along.
They weren't sure. They weren't sure about that thing. So they put it out there to the fans and said, look, you want this thing? Cash up. Let's go.
And your point about Fortnite too is it didn't even dawn on me. Like, you had those tie-ins, like they did the Emperor's Message. They have Marvel characters in it. Like, that's a direct tie-in to something that millions of kids are playing all the time, every day.
And it's part of their social world.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
That is a social sort of, convergence of all these kids' interests, that even though everybody's sort of on YouTube and Netflix and Discord, and there's all these different places where kids' attention and adults' attention is just scattershot, just all over the place. There is no more you knew back in 1985, every kid on Saturday morning at 9:00 was watching the same show. Every afternoon at 4:00 after school, every kid was watching the same show. So you could focus all of those advertising dollars, all those toy dollars, all those marketing dollars could be focused in one specific place, because that's where all the eyeballs were. Now it's everywhere until you have a phenomenon like Fortnite. And that's why you keep seeing all those licensed things pop up, G.I. Joe, Marvel, NFL, like Predator, Aliens, like I didn't even know Predator and Aliens were in it until I saw a video of somebody and the alien is doing the stupid flossing dance thing. And I'm just like, good God.
That's what we need. We need to get the M.a.s.k characters in the Fortnite.
So, hey, obviously Hasbro's still got M.a.s.k sitting there, and they're still thinking about this potential, film and shared universe and whatever. And it may not look like the thing. In fact, I'll guarantee that it's not going to look like the same thing. That Matt-Trakker ain't rolling up in a Trans Am,
No. As long as it's red, I think it'll be okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
But we've been on for a little over an hour. I don't want to tie up the rest of your Saturday here. Is there anything you want to talk about before we sign off here?
I think we pretty much covered everything that I expected to or wanted to be able to hit on. We talked about some M.a.s.k stuff, talked about collecting in general, and talked about YouTube production. And I mean, that's pretty much my entire life. So that's everything.
Well, I also feel the pain of being hot when you're doing these things, because I have my window closed because my neighbors are loud, my fan off because I wanted to make sure the audio, like got a little sweat going down.
Yeah.
I got to edit it out. Because I'm in Jersey. You're in New England area, right?
Yeah, New Hampshire. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A little further north.
Yeah,
we had snow. We had snow this morning.
we had rain, so thankfully that trend stopped of dumping snow everywhere. But no, I appreciate the time, Dan.
Absolutely.
Again, you have the distinct honor. I'll work up like a certificate for you or something.
Oh, thank you.
I met you first in person before I talked to you on here.
Yeah.
I'll figure out a good way to word it.
Good stuff.
And if I ever do decide to get rid of that Boba Fett there, I'll send it your way too.
Sounds good. Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I wish we could have, met up again at RetroCon. Hopefully, I don't see it. I don't see conventions happening this year. So hopefully 2022. If
they do, it's going to be very small.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
Maybe
I won't be there. So
maybe not. Not maybe guests will be harder to come by. And
yeah.
But yeah, if you ever need help with M.a.s.k stuff, and you know where to find me.
Absolutely.
So until next time, that's Dan from Toy Galaxy. I'm Bill from Matt-Trakker.com. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to help keep M.a.s.k alive. And we'll talk to you later.
Later.
Spectrum's got such super vision.